Now, of course, there were plenty of people there demonstrating who genuinely just want to see an end to the war like we all do. But this protest that was called March for Humanity featured the Taliban flag, chants such as death, death to the IDF, and posters of Iran's Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei. And there was a lot of anger and a lot of hate directed at Israel, yet barely any condemnation of Hamas, the terror group who refused to release the hostages, who on the same day as this protest took place, released a horrifying video of Israeli hostage Aviatar David appearing to dig his own grave in a terror tunnel. Now, as I said at the start of this, not all of these protesters, but many of them who showed up there on Sunday were clearly supporting Hamas. And support for terror on Australia's most iconic landmark is absolutely disgusting. The same weekend, during a protest in Melbourne, the Australian flag was burned by masked demonstrators who also painted "Abolish Australia," and that is truly sickening. Joining us now is Sky News contributor Michael Kroger. Michael, thank you for joining us. Firstly, can I get your reaction to this March for Humanity protest that took place on Sunday?
Well, like you, I agree. There were a lot of, good-hearted people who went along because they're concerned about the images they've seen of starving children in Gaza. But unfortunately, underlying all of these Palestinians' demonstrations is a healthy dose of Jewish hatred and anti-Semitism. And that's what's sickening about some elements of these demonstrations. Not only the things happened that you mentioned, but if it's a March for Humanity, why weren't there any Australian flags? Not a single Australian flag, American flag, British flag. There was an Islamic State flag. No Western country's flag was there. There were Hamas symbols, Nazi symbols, chants from the river to the sea, which is, death to Jews, et cetera, et cetera. So, what the undercurrent of these demonstrations is quite sickening, and it scares Jewish Australians, and that's disgusting. It's abominable. And, the leaders of these demonstrations need to stop all this Jewish hatred and racism.
And just images of the Australian flag being burned. It's shocking. Is this extreme hate for the West being normalised? It's just being displayed?
Yes, well, don't forget, a lot of these demonstrations by the left are actually demonstrations against the Western civilization and Western countries. So it's why you have demonstrations against the Jews in Israel, but not against the Russians in the Ukraine. They don't care about the mass slaughter and starvation going on in the Sudan, which is many, many more times deaths and starvation than there is in Gaza. But is there a single demonstration by these people, these, humanists? Is there a single demonstration by any of them about the tragedies in Sudan or Ukraine? No, of course not, because, it doesn't tick off anti-Western culture, anti-Western civilization and Jews. Of course, if there aren't any Jews involved, a lot of these extremists, are not interested. So that's why I say there is Jewish hatred underpinning some elements in these demonstrations, and that's disgusting in a modern country like Australia today.
Let's look at the situation in Gaza. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu will reportedly bring his security cabinet together this week to discuss expanding the ground offensive in Gaza. Now, the Israeli military currently holds operations in around 75% of the Gaza Strip, but under the Israeli leader's new plan, the IDF would capture the rest of the enclave. And this, of course, comes after ceasefire talks with Hamas collapsed. But we do know that Israel's under a lot of global pressure to end this war. Israel's absolutely losing the PR war about this. Many argue that Israel has gone too far. They argue that Israel has failed when it comes to delivering enough aid. What do you make of reports that Netanyahu is inclining towards actually expanding the offensive?
Well, it looks as if that's what he's going to do. But after a couple of years, people are tiring of this. The Israelis, the Jewish community worldwide never get good press. Let's accept the fact that, there is so much anti-Semitism and Jewish hatred in countries, mainly in Western countries, the hard left. It used to be the hard right, the neo-Nazis. Now it's the hard left who are, racist, anti-Semites and, anything the Israelis do, anything the Israeli government does, anything the Jewish state does, they condemn. So, this is just par for the course. But what is concerning is this war has gone on for so long now. The patience of some Western leaders is being exhausted. And that's the greatest challenge for Netanyahu. 75% is not 100%. In that 25% of course, the hostages. The Israelis know where they are. The problem is they can't get to them because they're surrounded by booby traps, bombs, and Hamas militia, and they'll all be killed if the Israelis attempt to go and rescue them. That's the problem he's got, and it's a problem Gabby hasn't been able to solve in almost 2 years.
I want to quickly ask you about Russia and also President Trump. We know that Donald Trump has announced that he will be substantially raising tariffs on India because it continues to purchase Russian oil. So he took to a social media platform, his own Truth Social, saying that India is not only buying massive amounts of Russian oil, they are then, for much of the oil purchased, selling it on the open market for big profits. They don't care how many people in Ukraine are being killed by the Russian war machine. Because of this, so will be substantially raising the tariff. What do you make of Donald Trump's move here?
Well, it's entirely predictable. It's consistent with Trump's sort of international foreign policy. Again, his patience with the Russians has been exhausted. He thought he had a relationship with Putin. He thought that relationship would lead to peace in the Ukraine. It hasn't. He feels he's being played. And now, of course, his 10 to 12-day deadline is about to end. Steve Witkoff's going there to meet Putin, I think, for the 5th time. But I don't think anything's going to happen. So Trump is now moving towards shutting down Western, exports to and from Russia. So India has 20% of its imports from China. 10% of its imports are from Russia. So it does a huge amount of trade with Russia on the import side. And Trump is doing exactly as you'd think Trump would do, basically saying to the Indians, listen, this is not acceptable. We want sanctions against Russia. And if you're not going to play ball, then we're going to make it difficult for you. Don't forget, India exports a huge amount to America. So it's going to damage the Indian economy. And that's what Trump wants to do. He wants to stop the Indians trading so much with Russia.
Finally, on one more issue back here in Australia, the Victorian government is being mocked right around the world for their grand plan to tackle knife crime. As we know, crime is out of control in Victoria. And so what do? They get taxpayers to foot the bill for a machete bin. Look at this.
Outside the Victoria Police headquarters on Spencer Street, a purpose-built bin for a weapon wreaking havoc.
This is very important. Those knives, those machetes, create enormous damage.
Come September 1, it will be illegal to own a machete, and this is where Victorians are being asked to drop them off during an amnesty period that will run until November 30.
We've done this because we want to get these knives off the streets because these knives destroy lives.
Michael, is it really going to be effective? I mean, those who want to launch a machete attack, they might spot the bin and decide they're politely going to get rid of it?
No, that's exactly right. All those machete-owning Victorians will be rushing to these bins to fill them up with their machetes. They won't be able to wait. They were falling over themselves, Gab, to line up at these machete bins. I mean, what a preposterous, ridiculous idea. The Victorian Premier is basically a laughingstock. We're a lawless state here down in Victoria, Australia, as everyone knows. We're bankrupt and lawless. No, I think if people want to get rid of the machetes, they'll just discreetly put them in their rubbish bin somewhere or someone else's rubbish bin. But this is farcical and it makes Victoria a laughingstock.
Oh, yeah, it's done that exceptionally well, time and time again. Michael Kroger, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, Gab.